Good morning, everybody. It's August 29th at about 10 o'clock in the morning. We're joined by Tony Greer of TG Macro. How's it going, Tony?
Oh, it's going great, Mike. It's going great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So you took a week off or so, had a great vacation, gearing up for the tail end of the year?
Yeah, it's exciting. It's nice to get away from the screens and clear your head and sort of think some bigger thoughts for a little while and kind of try to posture yourself mentally for the end of the year. And that's exactly what I was able to do. And I'm feeling pretty good about the way things are trading and how I'm positioned. So we're in good shape.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. It sounds like it was a great trip, and so cleared your mind. That's good. And we were just talking a second ago when you joined us last on audio. You were talking about a few different names and themes you were looking at, and one of the ones that you were looking at, I think you might have been on with us the day that Apple surpassed $1 trillion, and you've been bullish that and continue to comment that it would be a quick skip from 200 to 220ish, and that's what we've seen. It's been a pretty amazing run.
Yeah, I feel like the timing was right to put on a momentum trade as we were getting through, some of the emerging market stress that the market was absorbing to try to take this run in Apple. I'm pretty confident being long that stock. I am a little bit less confident about the FAANG complex, even though it is still making a new high. Broadly speaking, I think Facebook is eventually, met with some discouraging news that's causing some discouraging sentiment. That's got the stock actually obviously back well off the highs around 175. And then Netflix is still doing its technical dance and hasn't really resolved whether it's going to resume a bull market run or continue to consolidate a little bit more, and maybe trade in a range for the second half of the year. So, while I'm comfortable with my Apple position, I see the S&P breaking out to a new high here, and I'm a little bit hesitant to go along with this S&P rally. I've got my eye on the VIX, which, if you look back in January when we were trading to about, just under 2,900, the VIX was trading around 10, either side of 10 pretty regularly. Today we're up at 2,900 and we've got the VIX trading 12 and a half. So to me, that's about 25% more risk premium that the VIX is factoring in up here. I think the VIX sort of has its eye, like we all do, on the emerging market stress that is being caused by the stronger dollar. So in this period of time, while I was away, the dollar got pounded due to a positioning issue. I think that the market was probably excessively long. And the central bankers and the president put a little bit more focus on the dollar strength. And that does what it tends to do, is kind of knock the dollar back a few pegs and clear out some of the weak longs. But when I look around, I still see the driving forces of the dollar are still intact. Things like, GDP at 4.2% is a great print. Consumer confidence at 134. President Trump is literally running show on the economic side while, the other personal social side is kind of falling apart around him. But like I said, I'm a little bit hesitant to go with the S&P rally up here above 2,900 because of the premium risk that the VIX is pricing in. I'm really focusing on being in the right names and the right sectors right now. And to me, Mike, I'm still focusing on the energy sector. I'm still bullish to oil as a commodity. And I'm extremely bullish in the cannabis space, given the news that came out while I was away with Constellation Brands putting another $5 billion into cannabis growth. That's a name I'm long. I've had on my position matrix since October of 2017.
Yeah, let's talk about that one. That obviously when you were gone had a huge move, and you talked about it actually before you left. And so, what was the thinking on being long that, and what's your thoughts based on the deal and where we are now?
The most recent deal is confirmation to me that I am sticking my nose in the right place, and as far as exposing my risk to the cannabis sector. I started off with the headline. I made my initial investment in the space with the first headline on the day that Constellation Brands bought their first 9.9% stake in Canopy. And I've been with my initial position since then. I am looking to add after the most recent cash infusion that they put another $5 billion in, because they're really going to expand their growth into the THC infused beverage space. I think that is a market that is, number one, totally misunderstood by, number one, the world, number two, Wall Street, and number three, the markets right now. I don't think that we have any idea what pricing a $300 billion annual sort of black pot market going onto a more regulated platform is going to do to the underlying stocks. I feel like I tweeted today, I feel like the cannabis market is the beginning of two simultaneous revolutions, where you've got that $300 billion sort of former black market coming online to a regulated market, and a legalized market that's going to open it up to every consumer, that's old enough to drink a beer. And I don't think the market is even capable of pricing in what that means yet. You've seen Constellation Brands start an absolute scramble in the beverage space for who is going to get their, marijuana growth for their THC products from who. And I just feel like we've gotten into the right name with Canopy Growth. So I'm looking for Canopy to pull back. I'm more than confident that it will, because this space is going to be extremely volatile as it grows and grows and grows. And I still think we're in the first inning of the cannabis revolution. But I think Canopy Growth can pull back to its old two breakout highs around 35, 36. I think that will take a little bit of time, maybe a couple of weeks, and that'll probably give the moving averages below it time to rise up and be supportive at that price. So, as I continue to play the scenario out in my mind, the way that the news flow and the price action is telling me, I want to add to my position in Canopy Growth.
Yeah. What about some other names that, maybe haven't taken off as much? When you were gone, we actually had a webinar with somebody speaking directly in the private equity side, more of the cannabis industry. And, there's been a lot of talk about, is this the next bubble, or have valuations gone too far? What are your thoughts on that? And are there any names that you're looking at other than Canopy that are still,
yeah, I'm keeping it simple right now, Mike, with Canopy and Tilray really high on my radar. As the Nasdaq listed first Nasdaq listed U.S. grower. Obviously, that stock has already doubled and gotten away from me. So in a massive short squeeze, so it's a little bit difficult to play that new issue rationally right now. But I think that they are a link to the medicinal side and the wellness side of cannabis that you absolutely need to be exposed to, because that's the other side of the revolution that's taking place right outside your door. There's the recreational space that's coming online, and then we're really kicking the door open to a new frontier market with the wellness side of the cannabis space. And, that is because we've still got cannabis listed as a Schedule I drug alongside heroin and LSD. Therefore, the government is not doing any studies on, the benefits of the drug. Those studies have all come from word of mouth use, and sort of smaller clinical studies that are claiming that cannabis is having a positive effect on, treatment of people with epilepsy and cancer and schizophrenia and all kinds of different, sort of mentally linked illnesses. So, as this market opens up and people start to see the efficacy of the drug and it starts to take form in various different, places in front of your eyes, there's going to be cannabis ointments, there's going to be cannabis drinks, there will be cannabis teas, there's going to be all kinds of new products, in your Whole Foods market when you go shopping through there. And I think that as the word spreads that these are products that are good for you, and we start reversing, 90 years of government propaganda that marijuana is a gateway drug to terrible things. That's why I sort of have a problem with anybody trying to put a value on this market, because no matter what any educated guess is put in front of me, I'm going to tell you it's finger in the wind, because nobody has any idea what any of these companies are going to be worth.
What about, so, you make all the valid points, which sound amazing. What would you say are the biggest risks on where we are right now in the cannabis industry and, Constellation and other kind of cannabis stocks?
The risk is that the government doesn't come fully around on it. We're scheduled in September, late September, I think on the 23rd, for the DEA to reschedule the drug, so obviously we're looking for it to move off of a Schedule 1 closer to a Schedule 5 like NyQuil, which where it probably belongs. But if the government doesn't make the move like that in short order, I think that would be a real problem and cause a real sentiment pullback in the sector. But Mike, like you look at this from a pure logic standpoint, in October, Canada is going to legalize recreational use of marijuana.
Yep.
How could you possibly think that right across the border, a country like the United States still has that drug on a Schedule 1 alongside LSD and heroin when, it's going legal for recreational use in Canada? I think we'd look pretty far behind the curve if that was the case. So I'm betting on this really happening late in September. And I think that it's going to give another little bit of a lift. Because I think that there are still skeptics in the market that think that Jeff Sessions is going to hold back, the legalization of cannabis. Right now we've got 30 states that have legalized it, and we haven't moved on a national platform. And that's what I mean when I say it's going to take years and years and years to change this whole, 90 years of government propaganda trying to tell us that this drug is bad for you. Meanwhile, it's about to spring up in the United States, Canada, Europe, Australia, pretty much everywhere around the globe.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take a step back from the cannabis side. You mentioned Apple and FAANG, and you touched on Facebook, and you've talked about over the past few weeks how you, especially after the last earnings report, that you're less supportive and you're kind of pretty pessimistic on Facebook. Is there something technical you're looking at, or is it more on the just kind of what the company's been telegraphing and where the sector's going?
Well, for me, it's always kind of the same overlay, Mike. It's the story plus the price action, right? It's how the stock is reacting to headlines. And when I look at Facebook in 2018, I look at a complete, an absolute mess of a chart that looks like a sort of, typical topping pattern when a stock has been on a run for a long time and the trend has been smooth as silk, like Facebook has been for the last 10 years, right? All of a sudden, we've got a logical point in time where they're getting caught red-handed abusing the rights of their platform users, right? All of the, this is happening alongside the entire sentiment in big tech turning, right? You just had the president the other day quoting, tweeting about, Google searches not being fair to the president. And what he's getting at is that, the big platforms in Silicon Valley continue to suppress conservatives. It's basically a proven fact. They've got Jack Dorsey going in front of the Senate hearing committee to explain himself, about shadow banning on Twitter. The CEO of Google refuses to do that. So to me, that's an automatic admission of guilt because he's not going to perjure himself or send himself to jail in front of a Senate hearing committee. And while the stock isn't reacting yet, I think that eventually, the more attention that the president draws to the unfairness, the more risk there is to be long the stock at the highs.
Right.
I'm not going to say that these are the headlines that are going to turn FAANG because there hasn't been anything of the like that has turned that complex yet. It's just something to keep in mind as the broader sentiment turns. You've still got Apple and Amazon that are apparently in good shape. You've got Facebook and Facebook and Netflix that have been set back just a little bit and are doing their technical work now. Bottom line is they've begun to break down below moving averages. And then you got Google, where it remains to be seen, where now the president's looking at how unfair they are. The CEO won't come in front of the Senate hearing committee, but still the stock is 1260 bid. And, I'm not going to be the one to tell you that this is going to break the bull trend in Google, but it's worth watching.
Yeah, absolutely. And, yesterday, a few people actually in our chat room were talking about Google being under pressure based on Trump's comments and what's actually going to happen. And, it also comes back. I remember at the beginning of Trump's presidency, I think Amazon was near 1,400. And, he was on attack on, Jeff Bezos. And, here we are, Google, Amazon in about 5 minutes will probably be trading 2,000. So
yeah, there was that light whisper about potential antitrust action, and I mean I can't even foresee a day now that Amazon is getting into sort of the content business and everything. I mean, what's amazing to me is that the DeMark guys who have been very good in sort of picking the ebbs and flows of the tech stocks are now starting to point out the DeMark 13s in Amazon and the NASDAQ. And to me, it looks like Amazon's back in that phase where it's probably never going to have another down day. Right. Like, I mean, I can't think of a reason why Amazon would have a down day in the year 2018. Now, I'm being slightly facetious, but I'm looking at all that it's already been through. We're seeing tech sentiment turn quite a bit. It survived the shot across the bow from the president. Jeff Bezos is on to the next. He's got 50% of the entire retail market, of the online retail market. He's got 5% of retail market globally, and it seems like nothing's going to stop him. So I mean, I would imagine Amazon just keeps rocking and rolling for a long time now.
Yeah, it's amazing statistics. And then last one, I just wanted to bring up. You had I think Marathon Petroleum. You wanted to focus on.
Yeah, I'm still, I'm still, I wanted to use that stock to get me back to the oil space, Mike. I'm still pretty bullish in oil. I feel like I'm more and more of a lone standing bull up here. There's just most recently, the Saudi Aramco IPO has been canceled, and that was, a pretty big reason for my early bullishness. So I was very cautious when I saw that headline. As it turns out, simultaneously, the Brent WTI spread is getting back on its horse. And trading back above, $7 Brent over. And that was the hallmark of the entire rally from $60 to $70. So if Brent is going to continue to trade well over WTI, that's going to, number one, keep me extremely bullish in crude oil. And number two, keep me long and strong the refiners. And if you look at the price action in the refiners, as Brent has recaptured that premium over WTI, they all made another run higher, right? Marathon Petroleum just put in a new 52-week high, which is encouraging for me, that's my top pick. Phillips 66 made another run toward the highs. It's not back there yet, but it's close. Delek did the same thing. Delek's back up above $50 now, and the refiner space is looking good to me. I remain an oil bull because I'm literally amazed at the spreads. The Brent premium over WTI, and everything is held in there in the face of number one, some ups and downs in the global economic data, and number two, it's held on to some serious length in the crude oil market, and it has not come off much. So I'm going to stay with my bullish call in both WTI and in refiners, especially in the equity side.
Yeah, that's worked out really well, and it's a really interesting case there. All right. Well, hey, Tony, a lot of great information. Really easy to talk to you. You just kind of go and you have a lot of great points, a lot of facts behind it, and the charts are in your favor. You've had a lot of great calls over the last month, so congrats on that.
Hey, man, thanks. We're not out of all these positions yet, so we can't pat ourselves on the back.
No, absolutely, but they've definitely been trending well for you. A lot of great ideas and a lot of great themes you've been focused on.
Yep. A lot. We're going to continue to try to keep it extremely focused on the sectors that matter and that are moving, and where I'm comfortable putting my money.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, that was Tony Greer, TG Macro. Thanks a lot for joining us. We'll speak to you soon.
Thanks, Mike.
All right. Talk to you later.